The first alien encounter. You know what's really funny about this whole situation? Captain Alex Rodriguez leaned back in her command chair, moots propped irreverently on the pristine control console of humanity's most advanced warship. She took a long sip from her coffee mug, which boldly displayed the text, "I'm not procrastinating. I'm giving my problems time to go away." The holographic alien ambassador's face, tentacles writhing in confusion, replied, "I failed to see any humor in this dire human circumstance, Captain. Your species has been given exactly one solar rotation to surrender conditionally to the Zra Imperium or face complete annihilation." "See, that's exactly what I'm talking about." Alex gestured with her mug, nearly spilling the precious caffeine. "You guys did absolutely zero research before showing up here with your fancy fleet and your ultimatum. I mean, didn't anyone in your entire civilization think to Google us first? Our intelligence suggests your species only achieved spaceflight mere centuries ago." The ambassador's translator rendered his clicks and whistles into slightly stilted English. "You are clearly technologically fresh compared to our 15,000 years of interstellar civilization." "Uh-huh." Alex took another sip. "And in those 15,000 years, did you ever have to evolve on a death world?" The ambassador's tentacles stiffened. "I do not understand the relevance." "Of course you don't." Alex put down her mug and pulled up a holographic display of her own. "See, while you folks were probably evolving on some nice, cushy paradise planet with perfect weather and no predators, we humans came up on Earth. Let me give you the highlights." She started flicking through images. "We evolved as persistence hunters who could literally chase prey until it died of exhaustion. We can survive in almost any climate, from Arctic to desert. We're one of the few species that can throw objects with deadly accuracy. Our pattern recognition is so good. We see faces in clouds. We're technically a prey species that decided to say, screw that, and became apex predators instead." The ambassador's tentacles were beginning to droop. "This is concerning, but, oh, just getting started." Alex's grin widened. "We're also basically unkillable by most standards. Break our bones? They heal stronger. Poison us? We might just incorporate it into our diet. Remove one of our organs? We've usually got a spare, or can just live without it. Hell, we deliberately inject ourselves with deadly diseases just to train our immune systems to kill them better." She leaned forward. "And that's just our biology. Want to hear about what happened when we started getting creative?" The ambassador's hologram flickered as he shifted uncomfortably. "I failed to see how. We invented weapons that could level cities before we invented spaceflight. We split the atom and immediately thought, hey, let's see what happens if we make this explode. We looked at the void of space and thought, bet we could live there, and then actually figured out how to do it. We turned our greatest predators into pets because they were fluffy, and we wanted to scratch their bellies." Alex stood up, walking through the hologram to pace her bridge. "But you know what the really funny part is? The absolute kicker in all this? The ambassador seemed to be regretting this diplomatic contact more with each passing second." "What would that be, human captain? We're actually really nice people. Most of the time, we love making friends, sharing culture, trading resources. All that good diplomat stuff. We've got this whole United Earth government now. We've mostly sorted out our internal conflicts. We're exploring space because we're curious and want to meet new people. We're basically giant space puppies, right up until someone threatens us or our friends." She stopped pacing and turned to face the hologram. "So here's what's going to happen. You've got exactly 1 hour to withdraw your fleet and send a formal apology, or we're going to demonstrate exactly why threatening humanity is the galactic equivalent of poking a sleeping bear with a stick. And trust me, you really don't want to see what happens when we actually try to wage war. You cannot be serious." The ambassador sputtered. "Our fleet outnumbers yours 1,000 to 1. Yeah." Alex picked up her coffee mug again. "So did the mammals that used to hunt our ancestors. Didn't work out too well for them in the end." She smirked. "Oh, and while we're chatting, you might want to check on those 6 ships at the edge of your formation. The ones that just went dark. The ambassador's tentacles whipped around frantically as alerts began blaring through his feed. What? How did you? Fun fact about humans. We're really good at hiding in plain sight. When we want to. Your sensors picked up our obvious fleet, because we wanted you to see it. What you missed were the stealth ships we've had shadowing your formation since you entered the system. Like I said, you really should have done your research. The hologram flickered more violently as the ambassador received suddenly panicked reports. This is impossible. Our technology is far superior to what you think we have. Sure, Alex's grin turned predatory. But like I said, you folks have been coasting on 15,000 years of gradual advancement. We've been playing catch up with the desperate innovation of a species that evolves to survive whatever the universe throws at us. Did you know we went from our first powered flight to landing on our moon in just 66 years? Imagine what we've managed in the centuries since then. She checked her watch. By the way, you've got 54 minutes left on that deadline. Might want to start drafting that apology. The ambassador's hologram disappeared suddenly, leaving Alex alone on her bridge. She took another sip of coffee and opened a channel to the rest of the fleet. All ships, this is Captain Rodriguez. Looks like we might be about to give the galaxy a practical demonstration of why you don't pick fights with Deathworlders. Battle stations, everyone. Let's show them what happens when you corner a species that turn running after things until they die into an art form. The response came back as a chorus of eager acknowledgements. Humanity had spent its entire existence preparing for fights exactly like this, even if they hadn't known it at the time. Every war, every struggle, every triumph over adversity had helped forge them into something unique in the galaxy, a species that could face down impossible odds with a grin and a quip, then proceed to do the impossible anyway. The Zra fleet was about to learn a very important lesson. There's a reason humans write so many stories about underdog victories. They've had rather a lot of practice at them. Exactly 53 minutes later, the Zra ambassador's hologram reappeared on the bridge. His tentacles were practically tied in knots. We wish to formally withdraw our ultimatum and extend our sincerest apologies for this grievous diplomatic error. He managed to squeeze out each word, clearly painful to his pride. Alex didn't even look up from her datapad, where she was playing a game of digital solitaire. Accepted. Though I have to admit, I'm a little disappointed. We had this whole battle plan worked out and everything. Did you know we named our military maneuvers after Earth animals? We were about to execute Operation Honey Badger. The ambassador's translator glitched, trying to process the strange term. What is a honey badger? Oh, and you're in for a treat. Let me pull up some videos. Alex's grin expanded as she started queuing up Earth wildlife documentaries. Consider this your first lesson in why challenging humanity is generally a bad idea. These little guys are basically us in miniature. They just don't give a. She trailed off as the ambassador flinched. And they're basically impossible to kill. As she began to preach to the thoroughly traumatized ambassador about Earth's wildlife, the rest of the human fleet stood down from battle stations. Were they, anything, even more disappointed than their captain about missing out on the fight? After all, humans do love a good underdog story, especially when they get to be the underdog. But that's the funny thing about being human. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in winning the fight, but in making sure it never happens in the first place. Though if you ask any human, they'll tell you it's a lot more fun when you can do it while thoroughly terrifying your would-be opponents with casual references to the death world that spawned you. The Zra Imperium would go on to become one of humanity's closest allies, if only because they were absolutely terrified of being anything else. And every year, on the anniversary of their almost war, they sent a formal delegation to Earth to participate in what humans call a team-building exercise. This year, they're going camping in Australia. The humans have assured them it'll be fun. They're lying, of course, but that's just another thing that makes humans unique in the galaxy. Sometimes, they show their friendship by traumatizing you just a little bit. After all, what are friends for? Later, in the Zra diplomatic archives, a new entry was added to their first contact protocols. If you encounter a species that seems suspiciously casual about your threats of annihilation, check their planet of origin first. If they evolved on a death world, Immediately withdraw and send apologies. Trust us on this one. Below this entry, someone had added in smaller text, especially if they're human. Those guys are crazy. And below that, in even smaller text, did you know they drink poison for fun? They call it alcohol, and they do it voluntarily. The final annotation, barely visible, simply read, they eat capsaicin for pleasure. Capsaicin. We use that for industrial solvent. What is wrong with them? The cultural exchange program still don't understand why this is necessary. Ambassador Kozit chittered nervously, adjusting the straps on his survival suit for the 100th time. Surely we can conduct diplomatic relations in a more civilized setting. Captain Rodriguez grinned as she checked the ambassador's equipment one final time. They stood in the loading bay of a transport shuttle, preparing to descend to the surface of what the humans had dubbed Paradise Island, known to most Australians as Fraser Island. Come on, this is traditional. She gave the environmental seal a final tug. Except, you wanted to understand humans better, right? What better way than to experience a tiny slice of what shaped us? The ambassador's translator crackled with what might have been a whimper. Your definition of paradise unnerves me deeply. Oh, don't worry. Alex's grin broadened impossibly further. We picked one of the nice spots for your first time. Beautiful beaches, ancient rainforests, lovely freshwater lakes, perfectly safe. As long as you follow the safety briefing. The safety briefing was 16 hours long. Well, yeah, we had to cover all the basics. What to do if you see a snake, how to spot a dingo, proper shark safety protocols, what to do about the spiders. You have multiple protocols just for avoiding death. The ambassador's tentacles were tying themselves in knots again. An entire section was dedicated to identifying which plants can kill you. Alex shrugged. Better safe than sorry. Though honestly, the plants aren't that bad here. Wait until we take you to South America next year. Now, those are some interesting flora. The shuttle touched down with a gentle thud, and the bay door began to lower. Warm, humid air rushed in, carrying the scents of eucalyptus and salt spray. The ambassador's environmental sensors went wild, trying to process the cocktail of organic compounds. Remember, Alex said cheerfully, as she shouldered her surprisingly heavy backpack, this is one of the most peaceful places on Earth. We specifically chose it because it's a protected World Heritage Site. Nothing here is actively trying to kill you. The briefing mentioned something called a drop bear. Oh, that's just a joke. Probably. She started down the ramp. Come on, we've got a 5-hour hike to the campsite. 5 hours? Yeah. We thought about taking the four-wheel drives, but we figured you should get the authentic experience. Don't worry, we brought plenty of water. You'll need it in this humidity. As they set off down the trail, accompanied by a mixed group of human and Dra diplomatic staff, and a very well-armed detail. At the alien's insistence, Alex found herself reflecting on how much had changed in the years since their almost war. The Zra had gone from threatening to annihilate humanity to being fascinated by them, in the way one might be fascinated by a particularly deadly but beautiful serpent. Their overtures had rapidly evolved from formal apologies to increasingly detailed questions about human biology, culture, and history. They had been particularly interested in human sports, though their first exposure to rugby had left them convinced it was actually some form of ritual combat. Alex still wasn't entirely sure they were wrong about that. Captain, the ambassador's voice pulled her from her reverie. What is that sound? Alex cocked her head, listening to the distinctive call echoing through the trees. Oh, that's just a kookaburra. They're birds, completely harmless. Unless you leave food out. They're actually pretty funny to watch. She trailed off as she noticed the ambassador had stopped dead in his tracks, all 4 sets of eyes fixed on something in the branches above them. And what is that? His translator barely managed to render the squeak in his voice. Alex followed his gaze to where a rather large goanna was sunning itself on a branch, its forked tongue flicking out occasionally to taste the air. That's just a monitor lizard. Don't worry, they leave people alone though. Maybe we should give it a bit of space. They can run pretty fast when they want to. Your world's apex predators were reptilian, and yet you survived? Well, yeah. We just got better at running and throwing stuff. Alex shrugged. Plus, you know, big brains. Tool use. All that good stuff. Though technically the apex predators when we were evolving were mostly big cats and wolves. The dinosaurs were long gone by then. What? Oh man. Wait until you see the museum exhibition. We've got some great fossils. Real shame you can't visit Jurassic Park, though. Apparently the insurance companies vetoed that one for diplomatic visits. The ambassador stopped again. The what park? Never mind. Probably better you don't know about that just yet. Hey, a rock wallaby. See? Nice, peaceful wildlife. Nothing to worry about at all. The rest of the hike furthered in much the same way. The humans casually pointing out various features of their death world with cheerful enthusiasm, while their alien guests became increasingly convinced that every human must be clinically insane to have evolved in such a place. By the time they reached the campsite, the ambassador had added 17 new entries to the official ZRA Guide to Human Insanity, including, they view large reptiles as cute and fascinating. Rather than responding with appropriate terror, they willingly swim in bodies of water containing multiple apex predators. They consider hiking in extreme heat and humidity to be fun and refreshing. Their children are allowed to play in environments containing millions of lethal hazards, and this is considered normal. They respond to warnings about lethal wildlife with excitement rather than fear. As the sun began to set and the humans started setting up camp with practiced ease, Ambassador Cosset found himself seated on a log, after carefully scanning it for hostile life forms, watching Captain Rodriguez demonstrate the art of marshmallow roasting. I think I'm beginning to understand, he said quietly. Alex looked up from her perfectly golden brown marshmallow. Oh, your species? You don't just survive here. You truly love this world, with all its dangers and challenges. It's not mere adaptation, it's an appreciation. Got it in one. Alex grinned, offering him a marshmallow on a stick. Want to try? Don't worry, we checked. They're safe for your biology. The ambassador regarded the sticky treat with a mix of suspicion and curiosity. Perhaps, just one. 3 hours later, the ambassador had discovered several more things about humans. 1. Their ability to turn anything into a celebration was remarkable. 2. Their musical traditions were surprisingly complex and varied. 3. They had somehow invented multiple ways to combine sugar and chocolate. 4. They deliberately sat around controlled fires for entertainment. 5. The concept of ghost stories was both terrifying and oddly compelling. As the evening wore on and the humans began setting up their sleeping arrangements in flimsy, temporary shelters they called tents, the ambassador made his final entry for the day in his diplomatic log. Humans are, without doubt, the most terrifying species we have ever encountered. They treat deadly environments as playgrounds, regard apex predators with affection, and appear to actively seek out new challenges to overcome. But perhaps most frightening of all is their capacity to make others see their death world through their eyes, to make even the most hostile environments seem somewhat welcoming. He paused, considering his next words. Recommendation: continue cultural exchange program, but with careful, mandatory cardiac monitoring for all ZRA participants. Also investigate possibility of importing these marshmallows, purely for research purposes, of course. In her own tent, Captain Rodriguez was making an entry in her official log as well. Cultural exchange proceeding better than expected. Aliens successfully introduced to camping, hiking, and marshmallows. Only 3 panic attacks today. New record. Tomorrow's agenda. Basic swimming lessons in the lake. Might hold off on mentioning the bull sharks in the river system until after they're comfortable in the water. She added a final note. Note to self. Remember to warn them about the spiders in the toilets before anyone needs to use the facilities. We don't need a repeat of the embassy incident. The next morning, the galaxy was treated to a rather unusual sight. A group of tentacled aliens learning to swim under the patient guidance of their human instructors, while periodically scanning the water for threats with increasingly paranoid determination. Meanwhile, in the ZRA capital, the Ministry of Human Affairs was frantically updating their species threat assessment. Threat level: extreme. Not because they're hostile, but because they're trying to make us participate in their insane recreational activities. Currently working theory, entire species suffers from adrenaline addiction. Recommend immediate research into human concept of fun. Possible chemical or psychological warfare agent. A junior analyst had appended a note. They want to take us camping in Australia. Send help. To which someone had replied, too late. They're already teaching the cultural exchange team how to surf. May the void have mercy on us all. The Intergalactic Cultural Festival 3 months after the infamous Australian camping expedition, Captain Rodriguez found herself standing in the Grand Hall of the Zixi High Council, trying very hard not to laugh at the sight before her. The Zexthra, in their endless quest to understand humanity, had decided to host an Earth Cultural Festival. The result was what could only be described as a fever dream of human activity interpreted through an alien lens. Ambassador, Alex managed to keep her voice steady. What exactly am I looking at? Casca's tentacles waved with what she had learned to recognize as pride. We have recreated several of your species' most important cultural rituals. Our researchers spent months studying human recreational activities. The central hall had been divided into different zones, each attempting to replicate a different aspect of human culture. The results were interesting. In one corner, a group of Zra were attempting to play basketball while wearing environmental suits. The fact that they had tentacles instead of hands had led to some creative interpretations of dribbling rules. Another section featured what appeared to be an alien attempt at a human coffee shop. The menu board listed such items as liquid consciousness enhancer, extra potent, and sweet cream brain accelerant. Is that a karaoke station? Alex pointed to a setup where several Zestra were attempting to imitate human music through their natural clicking sounds. Yes. We found the concept of voluntary vocal performance particularly fascinating, though we're still trying to understand why humans consume alcohol before participating. Alex watched as a Zra diplomat attempted to recreate Sweet Home Alabama through a series of rhythmic clicks and whistles. You know what? That's actually not the worst cover I've heard. But the centerpiece of the festival was what the Zigra proudly called their Human Survival Challenge course. It was, as far as Alex could tell, their attempt to recreate a typical day on Earth. Walk me through this, she said, gesturing to the elaborate obstacle course. Kazakh clicked excitedly. First, participants must navigate a simulated human urban environment while avoiding will transport devices. You mean crossing the street? A terrifying ritual. Then they must survive an encounter with one of your juvenile humans. That's just a playground with kids playing. Exactly. The unpredictability is frightening. Following that, they must attempt to process human nutrients in their raw form. You mean eating a sandwich without knowing if it contains the deadly capsaicin. And finally, they must attempt the most dangerous human recreational activity we've documented. Alex looked at the final station, which appeared to be Ambassador. That's just a dance floor. Yes. Voluntary rhythmic movement in close proximity to other beings. With no clear tactical advantage. Truly, humans fear nothing. Alex had to sit down for a moment. So, I get this straight. You've created a festival that turns ordinary human daily activities into extreme survival challenges? Exactly. We believe it will help our people understand the incredible resilience required to live on Earth. The ambassador's tentacles wiggled with excitement. We've even included some of your traditional Earth sayings in our promotional materials. He proudly showed her a holographic poster that read, Human Cultural Festival. Live like a human if you dare. Warn participants to engage in Earth normal activities at their own risk. Medical staff on standby for psychological trauma. You know what? Alex grinned. This might be the most accurate representation of human culture I've ever seen. Though I have to ask, what's that section over there with all the warning signs? That's our simulation of a human educational institution. We call it the school experience. It's our most extreme challenge. Participants must solve arbitrary mathematical problems while sitting still for extended periods. You made math class? Yes. Though we had to tone it down considerably. The original version caused too much psychological distress. As they toured the rest of the festival, Alex found herself increasingly impressed by the Zra's dedication to understanding humanity. Even if their interpretations were somewhat unique, they had created a human food challenge section where brave participants could attempt to eat things like ice cream, voluntary temperature shock, and pizza, multiple food groups in dangerous proximity. There was even a small petting zoo featuring Earth's most docile predators, mostly consisting of pictures of cats and dogs, as the actual animals had been considered too intense for the first festival. "Oh, by the way," Kazakh said casually, as they passed a booth selling human-safe snacks, "we've been meaning to ask you something." Preliminary research suggests that humans have a tradition of annual cultural festivals. "Oh no, and since you introduced us to your world, please don't say it. We would very much like to host a delegation of humans for our own cultural festival next year. We've already begun preparing the methane geysers and electromagnetic storm simulators." Alex held up a hand. "Hold it, Ambassador. Remember what we talked about regarding human environmental limitations? Oh, don't worry. We've designed special suits that will allow humans to experience our traditional volcanic mud baths, mostly safely within acceptable risk parameters. I'll have to check with Command about that one." "Excellent. We've already prepared the waiver forms. They're only 60 pages long." As Alex watched a group of Zra attempt to recreate a human birthday party ritual, complete with safety gear for candle blowing, she couldn't help but reflect on how far they'd come from that first confrontational meeting. Sure, the Zextra might think every aspect of human life was an extreme sport, and yes, they might have accidentally classified going to the grocery store as a high-risk activity, but they were trying to understand, in their own unique way. Besides, Alex thought as she watched a particularly brave Zra attempt to eat a jalapeno popper, it was probably good for the galaxy to maintain a healthy respect for humanity's casual relationship with danger. She made a mental note to start preparing for the Zra festival. After all, turnabout was fair play, and she was pretty sure the sight of humans enthusiastically participating in alien extreme sports would give the Zra an entirely new appreciation for just how crazy humans could be. Later that evening, the Zra High Council received an urgent message from their Earth observation team. Urgent update regarding human recreational activities. They have something called Black Friday shopping. Preliminary analysis suggests it may be some form of ritual combat over discounted goods. Requesting immediate increase in research funding to understand this phenomena, to which the council responded, request denied. Some aspects of human behavior are better left unstudied. Focus on safer topics, like their habit of keeping predators as pets. The final addendum simply read, wait until you hear about their extreme sports. On second thought, don't tell us. We don't want to know. When humans visit your death world, you want me to what? Admiral Marcus Thompson stared at the report on his desk with the kind of expression usually reserved for people who've just been told their vacation has been rebooked to the surface of Venus. Captain Rodriguez stood at attention, trying to maintain a professional demeanor despite the grin threatening to break through. Sir, the Zra have officially invited a human delegation to participate in their annual cultural festival. As the officer with the most direct experience in human-Zra relations, you want to take a team of humans to participate in activities that the Zitra consider recreational. The same Zestra who thinks our world is a death trap. Yes, sir. They've provided comprehensive safety protocols and environmental suits rated for Rodriguez, sir. Is this payback for the camping trip? Absolutely not, sir. Alex's face was a mask of innocence. Though I should mention that Ambassador Kazat specifically requested that we experience their traditional light acid rain celebration. The Admiral pinched the bridge of his nose. You realize this is technically above my pay grade. Taking humans to participate in alien extreme sports. They've already received approval from their high councils, sir, and I have a list of volunteers. Of course you do, he sobbed. Humanity's first invitation to an alien cultural festival, and it's essentially a death world obstacle course. To be fair, sir, they think everything is a death world obstacle course. Fine. Approved. But I want it on record that when this inevitably goes sideways, I told you it was a bad idea. Alex's final grin broke through. Noted, sir. Though you might want to pack your environmental suit. You're on the VIP guest list. The Zra homeworld, as it turned out, made Australia look like a petting zoo. Welcome to Zex Threx Prime. Ambassador Kazatek's tentacles waved enthusiastically as the human delegation stepped out of their shuttle, each wearing an environmental suit that looked like it had been designed for deep-sea exploration of Europa. We've promptly adjusted the atmosphere composition in this dome to make it more hospitable. By which you mean, Alex checked her suit's readings. It's only slightly more acidic than battery acid. Exactly. We've also reduced the electromagnetic interference to levels that your nervous systems should be able to tolerate, and the gravity has been adjusted to only 1.3 times Earth normal. Admiral Thompson's voice crackled over the CUM system. How considerate. The delegation stood in what appeared to be a massive enclosed arena, its transparent dome revealing a sky that looked like someone had asked a computer AI to generate nightmare fuel. Multiple suns of varying colors painted the caustic clouds in shades of purple and green, while occasional flashes of lightning illuminated what appeared to be floating islands of crystalline formations. This is amazing. Dr. Patel, their xenobiologist, was practically bouncing in her accelerated gravity suit. The crystalline structures in the upper atmosphere, are they naturally occurring? Oh, yes. Though we recommend against direct contact. They tend to disagree with carbon-based life forms. When you say disagree, let's just say we lost several research vessels before implementing our current safety protocols. Alex watched as more members of the human delegation filed out of the shuttle, each reaction varying between scientific fascination and healthy terror. The engineering team was taking readings of everything in sight. The medical team was triple-checking everyone's suit, seals, and the diplomatic corps was trying very hard to look like this was all perfectly normal. So, she turned to Kazit. What's first on the agenda? The ambassador's tentacles did what she'd learned to recognize as their equivalent of a gleeful wiggle. We thought we'd start with something simple. Traditional youth recreation activity. He led them to what appeared to be a field of crystals that hummed ominously, interspersed with pools of something that definitely wasn't water. The goal is simple. Participants must navigate the crystal maze while collecting resonance spheres. He held up what looked like a ball of living lightning. The crystals change frequency in response to movement, and the pools, well, let's just say it's best to avoid those. To everyone's surprise, it was Admiral Thompson who spoke first. What's the record time? Alex turned to her superior officer in shock. Sir, well, we're here to participate in cultural exchange, aren't we? Might as well show them how humans handle a challenge. What followed was perhaps the most bizarre sports tournament in human history. The Zra watched in increasing alarm as their human guests not only participated in their extreme environment games, but began to actively enjoy them. The Crystal Maze Challenge turned into a competitive event, with humans trying to beat each other's times. The engineering team figured out that they could use the crystal resonances to predict pattern changes, turning it into a science. The light acid rain celebration became an impromptu dance party when someone pointed out that the acid created beautiful patterns of light when they hit their suit's force fields. Even the traditional Zra meditation chamber, a room of swirling electromagnetic vortexes that they used for spiritual enlightenment, was approached with enthusiasm by the humans, who described it as like a zero-gravity rave with bonus northern lights. I don't understand. Kazid confided to Alex as they watched a group of humans attempting to play volleyball in 1.3 gram while dodging random gravity fluctuations. These activities are meant to test our species' resilience. They're challenges to be overcome, not whatever this is. Alex laughed. Her suit, speakers carrying the sound clearly. Ambassador, I think it's time you learn something important about humans. We don't just overcome challenges. We turn them into games. But Lieutenant Yu just did a backflip in enhanced gravity. Yeah, she used to be a gymnast. Speaking of which, wait until you see what the parkour guys try on those floating crystal islands. The what? Want to do what? Before Kazakh could properly process this new horror, Admiral Thompson's voice came over the General CUM channel. Hey, has anyone tried eating in these suits yet? The Zra set up what they call an extreme dining experience, sir, Alex replied. I don't think that's a good too late. Some of the science team already figured out how to modify their suit systems to safely process their food. They're calling it molecular gastronomy in hell, 'cause its tentacles drooped. Your species is going to give our entire safety committee a collective nervous breakdown. Look on the bright side. At least no one suggested trying to surf in the liquid crystal lakes yet. There was a pause. Ambassador, why are you turning that color? Someone from your extreme sports division just submitted a request to do exactly that. Alex couldn't help it. She burst out laughing. Well, you did want to understand humans better. This is pretty much how we respond to any new environment. Figure out how to survive in it, then figure out how to have fun in it. Is that why 3 of your scientists are trying to calculate if they can safely create a hot tub in one of our thermal vents? Probably. Though to be fair, they're more likely trying to figure out if they can make it into a spa treatment. Humans love spa treatments, even in potentially lethal environments. As the festival continued, the Zexra found themselves revising their understanding of humans yet again. It wasn't just that humans could survive in extreme conditions. They actively sought ways to enjoy them. By the end of the week-long event, several new entries had been added to the official Zra Guide to Human Behavior. Humans will attempt to turn any survival situation into a recreational activity. Their response to danger appears to be, but what if we made it fun? They have an unsettling ability to adapt games to any environment. Their scientists seem physically impossible of not experimenting with potentially deadly phenomena. They appear to derive pleasure from making their safety officers nervous. The closing ceremony featured what could only be described as a cross-species rave, with humans teaching the Zexra their dance moves while the aliens provided a light show using their natural bioluminescence and the ambient electromagnetic phenomena. You know, Kazi said, as they watched Admiral Thompson attempting to teach a group of Zra diplomats how to do the Macarena in enhanced gravity. I think I finally understand why your species survived on your death world. Oh. Alex adjusted her suit's cooling system. Dancing in 1.3 gram is quite a workout. You didn't just adapt to survive. You adapted to thrive. You look at the most hostile conditions and see possibilities. That's a pretty good insight. It's also terrifying. That too. Alex grinned behind her visor. So, same time next year? I heard some rumors about your volcanic ice caves. Kazeda's tentacles did their equivalent of a resigned sigh. I'll have the safety committee start preparing. Though now I should warn you, the ice is slightly radioactive. Even better, the physics team is going to love that. The final report from the Zra Cultural Exchange Committee contained only one recommendation. While humans have proven to be excellent allies and fascinating cultural partners, extreme caution is advised when introducing them to new environmental hazards. Not because they can't handle them, but because they will inevitably try to turn them into recreational activities. A personal note from Ambassador Kazit was appended. They've started talking about bringing something called an X Games to our world. I don't know what that is, but the way their extreme sports division's eyes lit up when they saw our gravity anomalies has me deeply concerned. And at the very bottom, in what appears to be slightly shaky handwriting, update. They just asked if we could organize an interplanetary parkour championship using our floating crystal islands. May the void have mercy on our insurance providers.